You're listening to the Women in Medicine Badass Radio Show with Dr. Sharon Grossman, episode number 29. Welcome to the Women in Medicine Badass Radio Show, where we deal with the real issues to get you from overwhelmed to optimal. And now, your host, Dr. Sharon Grossman. Welcome back to another episode of the Women in Medicine Badass Radio Show. Today, we're going to talk all about post-traumatic growth. Now, if you're not familiar with this term, let's back up a little bit and define some other terms that are going to help us understand how to get to this place. So we all know what trauma is. It is typically an experience that we have that lives with us and has a very negative effect on us. And we've probably all heard of post-traumatic stress or post-traumatic stress disorder, which in short is PTSD. And this is typically when we've experienced that negative event and it really has all kinds of negative impacts on us so that we are re-experiencing the event in our mind and in our body, almost as if it is still happening. We feel stuck in the past and it really takes a negative toll on us. So now that we know what post-traumatic stress is it really possible for us to come out of a negative experience, not only to recover from it, but to actually grow and expand way beyond where we were before the event actually happened? Well, that, my friends, is what post-traumatic growth actually is all about. It's about this psychological transformation that you experience after having this highly disruptive life event or trauma. It's where you get to learn from the situation and become a better and stronger version of yourself. And this can really result either from how you experience the event in the first place or how you cope with it. Now, if you've listened to some of my previous episodes, you know that one of the things that I teach and the thing that I really strongly believe in is that it is our beliefs that lead to how we think, which then affect how we feel and what we do. And coping is a behavior. So there are schools of thought that are really more behavioral, and they look at how do we cope with things in our lives? What do we do when we are in a stressful situation? And the idea there is that sort of coping, whether you are coping adaptively or maladaptively, is going to ultimately be the deciding factor for how you come out on the other side. There's a whole other school of thought, which is what I want to talk to you more so about today, which is really more a cognitive process. And that is how you assess or appraise the situation. So there's something called stress appraisal. And that's when you think about the situation, how you think about it is going to really affect how you feel and then the coping that you choose to go ahead with. And because I believe that it is our belief system that then leads into our thinking, it then stands to reason that if you believe that stress is debilitating, your appraisal of the situation when you come across it is going to negatively affect how you actually cope. When, however, you believe that stress is something that can enhance your life, that it is something that maybe helps you expand and grow, then you are going to have a more positive appraisal of the situation, which will perhaps lead to more adaptive coping. Now, believe it or not, the way in which you think about stress can actually affect your cortisol levels. So you will actually experience a situation as less stressful if you believe that stress can be enhancing. Whereas if you believe that it's debilitating, you will have higher cortisol levels, which will then have a more negative impact on your experience. So I thought that's actually pretty interesting. Now, to take this to the next level, I want to share with you something from the research. This is from Calhoun and Tedeschi. who came up with 5 components of a model that really help facilitate this post-traumatic growth. So this is something that we experience, but it can also be something that we have facilitated for us. So if you have experienced something really traumatic, if you feel like you are stuck in that negative experience, if you're feeling really negative about it or feel really victimized by your situation, this is an opportunity to work with somebody who really specializes in trauma, and they can facilitate this process in these 5 steps. So the first step, according to the researchers, is you need to shatter those core beliefs that you have and the physiological reactions that you're experiencing due to the trauma. Like I said, when you have PTSD, your body is constantly reliving the experience. Every time you think about it, you're experiencing all that arousal happening all over again. And so when you're able to shatter those beliefs and those reactions in your body, you can start to experience the event as something that is understandable or maybe even normal, and see it as an opportunity for growth. Then step 2 is to actually reduce the psychological distress that you experience by changing the ruminations in your mind, and doing so in a deliberate way where you get to really process the information by reflecting on it more so and focusing on the growth that you can experience as part of this. Step 3 is where you start to extract meaning from the experience of the trauma. Now, if you know anything about the mind, it's that we are meaning-making machines, and we are always trying to understand what things mean, and this becomes part of our story. Our story is where our beliefs live, and so when you have a negative story about your experiences, you really stay stuck in that victim mode. Alternatively, when you start to extract meaning that has a potential for growth, and how you might have actually heard other people say things like this: I had that in order for me to get to where I am today, and I wouldn't change anything that's happened because of who it's made me or who I've become in the process. This is how people are extracting that meaning. The next step, step 4, is where you reconfigure your core beliefs and life story with one or more of the 5 domains of post-traumatic growth. So researchers also came up with 5 different domains, and they include an appreciation of life. So, for example, if you've ever been in a car accident, you might realize how much you appreciate the fact that you're still alive, even though this horrific thing happened or had the potential to really kill you. The second domain is relating to others. For instance, if you have cancer and other people around you have cancer, then you can start to relate to them more. Like you feel like you are part of this group of people. You're not alone, right? There's some sort of relating to them. Or if you've had domestic violence, for instance, you then maybe go into a group. Or if you're experiencing any sort of substance abuse and you go into AA, you can kind of feel like there are other people and you relate to them because they're all in it together with you, and they know exactly what you're experiencing, and you understand them and they understand you. Another one of these domains is personal strength. And think about all the things that you've been through in your life that have been difficult and how it's made you so much stronger. This is where you become more resilient. This is where the growth actually happens, right? So you have an opportunity to reflect on this experience that you've had that's been disruptive or traumatic, and to actually change your story around it by incorporating these ideas. Another one is new possibilities. So you might actually ask yourself, as a result of having this experience in my life, even though it was hard, it was really challenging, what are some new possibilities that I didn't have before that now I have an opportunity to really explore? And finally, the 5th dimension or domain of post-traumatic growth is spiritual growth. And a lot of times people will talk about, I was on the brink of death and I saw the light at the end of the tunnel, like literally saw, like I was going to leave and then I felt like I wasn't ready and I was brought back and I had this real spiritual experience and now I have this calling. People have different ways in which they experience these things. So think about your own experience and if there is an opportunity for spiritual growth. So part of this fourth stage is to take any one of those 5 domains and incorporate that in your story. So again, these are appreciation of life, relating to others, personal strength, new possibilities, and spiritual growth. And finally, the very last stage, stage 5, is appreciation of yourself as a hero who's actually survived some amazing, enormous challenge. And you hear this also in the language that we use. For instance, people who have had cancer and have recovered, we call them cancer survivors, right? There's some sort of this heroic idea about how you've fought and you've won the battle. And that is instead of feeling like you've been victimized, like, oh, I have gotten cancer and I've been victimized in my life because of this, right? This is this idea of embracing the challenge and becoming more resilient as a result of this. And ultimately, how cool is it if you can take that, grow with it, and become a role model to really enact positive change in the lives of others? So I really encourage you to think about these stages. Again, thinking about how you can change the negative thinking so that you're appraising your stress in a way that is enhancing your life, that is helping you become stronger and believe more in yourself, that with every adversity, you become more resilient, more capable of dealing with the hardships, of not being afraid of anything because you can handle it, trusting yourself, and then being that amazing role model for others. That's what I wish for you. And I hope that you will share your journey with me on my website at drsharongrossman.com or on my podcast in the comments. And I'll talk to you again next week. Thanks for listening to the Women in Medicine Badass Radio Show. If you loved what you heard, join my Tribe to Thrive. It's a free community where you'll receive daily tips and weekly trainings to optimize your life. Go to drsharongrossman.com to sign up. I'll see you on the inside.